Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in today. We've got some fun topics. I don't know if you looked at the description in the video, but we've got some interesting things to discuss today. As always, lots of fun topics in travel to discuss. And if there's anything that you want to discuss, feel free to pop it in there. Just drop down in the comments below. Let me know what your weather is like. It's not particularly nice here today. We're about 15, 16 degrees, which is about 60 Fahrenheit. So let me know where you are watching from and what your weather is like. We are overcast and there's supposed to be a bit of rain. And frankly, that's not a bad thing. The last 2 or 3 years, it's been very hot summers and drought, which means lots of forest fires. So actually, I'm okay with it being kind of cooler this year, honestly. Yeah, I just don't mind. The cooler temperatures they're okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So our first topic of the day, we're going to talk about housekeeping. We've talked about this before. We did a show, I think it was last week, we did a show on just solely on tipping. And I'm curious where, if you leave a tip for housekeeping, where do you leave it? There's been some interesting comments. Howard actually just commented on my survey today and said that his wife leaves it on the unmade bed, and she also leaves a couple of individually packaged chocolates or candies, that kind of thing, which is something I really like to do. Get the individually packaged Werthers or other butterscotch treats. The strawberry ones are really good. Hard candies, I like to get those from Dollarama. And as he said, never hurts to butter up housekeeping, right? So, yeah, I really like that idea. He also talked about bringing some little mini Cadbury chocolate bars or the Linder chocolate balls, which of course are amazing. But if you're putting them in your checked bag, or you have them in a large suitcase and you have to wait for your room, depending on where it's stored, it could be in an area that is quite warm. And so you then might have a bit of a gooey mess on your hands. Hence why I always opt for the hard candies. And I will say that I think it was at I forget when I started doing this, but definitely at the Hyatt Zilara Cap Cana in the Dominican Republic. Beautiful, beautiful resort. That one, I was leaving the candies for housekeeping, and the property had just opened up. It was within a month or so. Actually, it was within 2 weeks of it opening that we were there. And we were, leaving the candies for housekeeping, but of course I overpacked, shocker. And I took a bunch of like a couple of handfuls down to the main pool bar where we would sit and chat with the guys, and I forget their names. And so I went down and I said, "Oh, I've got a bunch of candies for everybody. Are you allowed?" And they were like, "Oh, sure, sure." So the bar manager, he says, "Okay." So he puts the candies down and then he calls all the waiters. There must have been 6 or 7 people working the area. Calls them all over and like had his hands over there, and he showed him and he said, "Help yourself." And it was like, "Get out of the way." They loved it. So that was kind of fun. I never really would have thought to bring treats like that for the bar staff. But of course, I mean, they're working hard, and it's not like, oh, well, they're hungry, they wouldn't snack on an apple or something. I mean, they're busy working and bringing you your drinks. So, yeah, challenging. But so it's nice for them to be able to have a candy, gives them a little bit of energy, and away they go. So, yeah, so it was kind of fun. So, where are we at? So, here's the option. So type in the comments below which one of these where you would leave your tips. So we've got obviously bedside table, on the pillow, Oh, by the bathroom sink, that was another one that I read online that people suggested. I thought that was kind of a weird one. I just wouldn't leave money in the bathroom. But I've even heard people say that they would leave it on the back of the toilet, like on the basin. And I just thought, well, that's kind of, I don't know. I just wouldn't put it there because I would think that's kind of gross. But also, because what if it falls in? Like, yeah. Or another one was front desk or leave it with reception. And I think that, I mean, I guess I just wouldn't expect it to necessarily get back to housekeeping though, especially to your housekeeper, the person who's been working on your room. Tammy is saying B. So on the pillow, yeah, that's what I've always done. And make sure that it's clean and put the money down, and then I put a stack of candies on top. And that seems to work. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, when we were in the Bahamas, and the lady said, "Thank you for the sweeties." So it was kind of nice. Obviously, she appreciated it. So if you can put a smile on their face and help them get through their day, all the better, right? So yeah, let me know what you think on that one. Okay, moving on to the next one. We have so this is tips for the minibar, and I'm curious whether you do this or not. I've really got to work on my stuff here because I can barely see it. Okay, there we go. So do you leave money for the person who replenishes your minibar? So the person who's restocking your in-room, in-suite minibar. So beer, water, pop, assuming you're staying at an all-inclusive resort. For me, like we go through a lot of water. Sometimes we go through a lot of beer. I rarely would have a pop. Maybe if they have Fanta orange, I'm always up for that. But yeah, it's always nice to do that. I know Tammy and I, about 1 million years ago, we were at the Rio. Were we staying at the Rio Santa Fe? I think we were staying at the Rio Palace, Cabo San Lucas, and we left a little note and some like "Más cerveza, por favor," more beer, please, and left a $5 bill in there. And we came back, and when I said, "Oh, okay, well, we'll open it up," opened up the minibar, and it was crammed full of beer. So obviously they were really happy with the tip. Oh, Alpine Gulch, chillin' too hot. I forget where you are, but yeah, that's interesting. A lot of places are like way hot this week for sure. Tammy's saying, yeah, it was money it was money well spent. It's pretty hilarious. If you want to see the video, just Google. It was called Mini Bar Magic was the name of the video, and I'll drop it into the comments below as well. But it was kind of funny. We also had a runaway shopping cart at the Costco when we were filming outside of that. Just random shopping cart goes sailing across from out of nowhere. It was kind of bizarre. Oh, hey Angelo, how are you? Saying, hey, they gave me tons of extra water. Oh yeah, coffee pods. Yes. Extra snacks? What kind of snacks were you getting? Or maybe this was at Breathless. I say that because when we were at the Hyatt Vivid, because it's on a slightly lower level than a Breathless Secrets Dreams, even though we'd upgraded to Vantage Club, there were no snacks in the minibar, and sometimes that is the case. And of course, it's the person who housekeeping does the cleaning, and then the minibar person is 99% of the time somebody else, and they'll come by with their cart full of all the beverages for the room, as well as snacks if you have a room that has snacks in the room. So yeah, let me know which if you leave a note, do you just leave cash? That's probably the easiest thing, obviously. Well, you were working the crowd pretty good. I mean, in fairness, here's the little things that I think we can do to make the whole resort day-to-day experience better for the staff. And that's things like remembering their name. And I will say that Angelo was amazing. He knew every customer-facing person at the resort. He was there for 2 weeks, but by the end of the first week, which is when I was there at the same time as him, he seemed to know every single person's name. And I think that they really appreciate it because they work hard to learn our names and our preferences. So when it's done in return, I think it's a bit of a kindness. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that you got little sneaky snacks, but good for you. That's awesome. Oh, M&Ms and Pringles. Very nice. Um, we didn't get any snacks, which was fine with us, but we did venture out to the shops and got our lime peanuts, of course, which I love. The Sabritas is the brand that we prefer. And I forget what else we got. We definitely got some snacks for the room, so that's always fun. But it was so hot that I tend to lose my appetite. So yeah, it didn't really need the room snacks, but that's always a fun treat. So yeah, let's move on to the next topic. So we are moving on to, I forget what this one is. It takes a second for me to for it to refresh. Oh, the craziest resort experience. I think I wanted to have this one last actually, but not to worry. There has been some crazy things that I have seen. So these were direct quotes from this one was a direct quote. I was at the Dreams Port Aventuras, and oh, okay. So Angela's saying, yeah, he puts money in the mini bar in the fridge inside the fridge with the note so that they know that the money is meant for them. I mean, I think if you leave it on the side table, it could be just where you put your money down, and it's not necessarily known for sure if they should take it. And I will say that never have we that I recall, never have I ever had change been taken from off of the bedside table. We will usually we'll save the coins up, and then that'll part of sort of make up the last day's tip or contribute towards the last day's tip. But I've never had them just randomly take it. Of course, I'm always leaving the money on the pillow. Yeah, and there's been a few times when we've gone out early and we've come back and they're already in there and we'd forgotten to leave something. So then we're like chasing them down the hallway or just, tip extra like the next day, whatever. But yeah, it's always good to leave a note, especially if there's anything in particular that you're looking for. Oh, okay. Yeah. And on the side table, as long as what happened there? There we go. A little technical issue. Yeah, if you're leaving a note for them, and sometimes they'll leave a little card that has their name on it. So in that instance, if you leave the money on the card, and as well, like they always have paper and a pen in the room, so you can leave a little note just to say, thanks very much, whatever. Or if there's anything in particular that you want, or maybe you want them to, keep the curtains closed so it stays nice and cool in the room, or you want to keep them open, whatever. If there's anything in particular that you want, of course, they're usually quite accommodating. But I would try to also, if you're in a Spanish-speaking country, try to put it in Spanish if you can. That's always a challenge for me, but that's why I have Google Translate on my phone. I definitely need that. So can I borrow a machete? So we were at Dreams Port Aventuras one year in the wintertime, and it's a family-friendly resort. And they had lots of palm trees, and usually the resorts are pretty good at keeping the palm fronds if they're getting older, if they're starting to look like they could fall. They're super heavy. So out of safety for the guests, they'll usually go up and hack them down if there's any issues or any concerns about them falling. And so, of course, this woman knew that they had machetes there, that the gardeners had them. And her son had found a coconut. And he'd been, banging away at it and trying to open it, and I guess he was using a rock and something else that he'd found on the beach, and it just wasn't gonna crack open. So the woman went up to the bar and asked the bartender if he could find out how she could get a machete because they wanted to open this coconut. And the guy's like, no, we can't do that. And she really got in a strop about it. She was really upset. And she said, oh, you're ruining my kid's vacation. And, we've never had an opportunity like this. And we really, all you have to do is get a machete and I'll make sure he's okay with it and whatever. Like, this thing will cut his hand off. So I can understand. And I think it was 3 or 4 of us that were there at the time. And we were just like, and jaw dropping. And yeah, it was just absolutely hard no. So that was an interesting one. In the end, she walked away. She was upset. I figured she probably would write a bad review, which is unfortunate because why would you give a kid a machete? I mean, even if you know that the person knows how to use it, the huge liability if something goes wrong, I wouldn't. I was surprised that she even asked, but whatever. The second one was another interesting story, and let me know what yours are below. I decided to keep these more on the positive side. I have witnessed some bad things, but we're going to keep this light and fun today, most days. So getting busy on the balcony. This is not something I witnessed, but basically what it was is there was a couple and they were having some romantic time on the balcony. This was during the day, if I recall the story correctly. And it was one of those sort of U-shaped resorts. And so they were up on the one side and they were going at it, standing up. And they were leaning up against the barrier between the balconies, and it was a sort of a tempered glass type thing, partition. And I guess that there was enough force that they broke the glass. And of course, this made enough noise that pretty much the entire resort was like, what was that? And of course, I think they were naked at the time. I'm not sure, but obviously they were pretty embarrassed. And yeah, so lesson learned, keep it inside, away from glass. I mean, it's lucky that they didn't get injured or anything because, when that glass shatters, it's pretty, right, what is going on here? I'm clicking to remove the comments and it's not, and then it's back. Oh yeah. So, okay. So I don't know what's going on, but whatever, we'll deal with it. Oh yeah. And then this was another fun one. People always talk about how a lot of people are concerned about thinking it's dangerous in Mexico. Personally, I think that Mexico isn't any dangerous than any other major tourist destination. I mean, you can go downtown to our downtown east side. That's pretty sketch, pretty dodge. And seriously, at other major tourist cities, whether you're talking Seattle, LA, Miami, it doesn't have to be in just Mexico. Like, crime happens everywhere, unfortunately. And sometimes it depends on if you go looking for trouble, you're going to find it. So talking to these two guys at, Joe's no breaking glass, but security was knocking on their door. Yeah, there's sometimes I don't know, maybe that's the turn on for people, but it's interesting. So anyways, so these two guys were sitting at a resort and we're talking to them and they were talking about, what things were like in Mexico. I think this was our first time or something. And the guy said, yeah, like mostly he thought it was totally fine. He was a bigger guy, muscular. So, the kind of guy who's going to look somewhat imposing, like he wouldn't necessarily be approached by people because he looked like he could be overwhelmed or whatever. Like he wasn't a meek little small guy. He was a big guy. And so he says, yeah, mostly he thought everything was totally fine, except for like one time when they went into Playa del Carmen and they were trying to buy some Coke, and the guy, pulled a gun on him. So he says, so they didn't buy any. I'm just like, what? I mean, to each their own, but it's legal. It's illegal. And why would you go and commit a crime in a foreign country? I mean, it's bad enough doing it in your own country, but yeah, that was his story. And obviously, nothing came of it, but crazy times. All right. And our final one, I forget what this one was. Just waiting for it to update here. Oh, smoking. Yes, the smoking ones. So smoking or vaping, whether you're in your hotel room or you're on your balcony, well, smoking is basically illegal now in Mexico. Not completely, but you're not allowed to smoke in public places. You're not allowed to smoke on the beach. You're not allowed to smoke, at most resorts, because they're considered private property, and because they're catering to tourists who are largely coming from other countries where smoking is allowed in designated areas. They will have a smoking spot for people to go to. So that helps to appease them. But in the last, I don't know, half a dozen hotels that I've stayed at, when I'm checking in, they make you sign a contract that states that you're not going to bring drugs on the premises, you're not going to smoke in your room, you're not going to play loud music. Some of them even say that you're not allowed to bring and play your own music unless you're using a headphone. If you're wearing a headphone, fine, but they don't want you playing a boombox or a JBL or whatever, playing music from your own speaker. And it's actually written in there, and it very clearly states that they can either fine you or they can kick you out. And sometimes it says that they can kick you out and they don't owe you a refund because you broke the contract. And this is why they make you sign it. And that's for you and everybody in the room. So you can't play the whole like, oh, I didn't know what my boyfriend was doing or whatever. So that's an interesting one. So we'll get back to that in a second. Angelo is saying, person completely, having their morning coffee on the balcony across from mine. Okay, well, that's a little bit, that's a little bit much. I decided to go back inside. That's funny. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I have seen very often after people have had a few drinks during the day, and also at dusk when it starts to get darker outside. And people often have their lights on inside. So they go in and they do their shower thing, and then they come out into the room. But the lights are on and you can see everything. So yeah, that's always an interesting one. But getting back to the smoking thing. So I guess the question, so for example, at the Rio Palace Cabo San Lucas earlier this year, there was a sign right on the bedside table, like a laminated sign on like stuck to the bedside table that said, if you were caught smoking on your balcony or in the room, that you would be subject to a $600 US fine, which I thought was a bit steep and a bit of a lot. But I don't smoke. I never have. So I don't really like to smell cigarette smoke. And, you want to enjoy your view from the balcony, but if you are out there and the person 3 doors up, 3 stories down, around the corner, whatever, if there's smoke, you're going to smell it. So I appreciate these rules that are in place, but I know it's a challenge for people who are addicted to smoking. But what do you think if they smoke and they're caught and then they do it again? What do you think strike two should be? Should they just get another fine at the same amount? Should they get double the fine? Should they get kicked out and the hotel refunds them the balance of the days that they're not going to be there? Or should they just get kicked out and your money's gone and too bad, because again, you broke that contract that you agreed to. Angela's saying, yeah, at the Hyatt. Oh, and this is in the US. If you smoke cigarettes or pot in the rooms, they will charge you an extra fee. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that it's had to come to this. And I think for the most part, they've always had rules in place that say you can't smoke. And that's because of, the extra deep clean that they would have to do once you leave. But the fact that they are now making people sign these contracts is interesting. And certainly, I mean, if you're on a cruise ship, you may or may not know this, but obviously smoking is cruise ship. And that was how, I think it was Carnival had that huge fire because somebody was smoking on their balcony and wanted to toss the cigarette butt into the ocean, because we all know that paper and whatever, all that stuff disintegrates so well. Not. Anyways, and instead of it going into the ocean, it actually, with the wind, it blew back into another balcony cabin and caught fire on some of the furniture in the room or on the balcony, and then caused a huge fire. Now, most of the cruise ships, the units are built as sort of boxes, and they're all kind of put together, and that's why they're able to fairly easily actually expand a ship and make it longer, which is kind of boggles the mind how they do this stuff, but it's quite interesting. And so on a ship, the smoking things are more of a hazard, whereas at a resort, less so, especially because a lot of them are concrete, but also it's just a nuisance. So what do you think? Should the person, like, if they're breaking the contract, should they just get kicked out, or should they go easy on them and just have another fine? I mean, personally, I think that either way, if they're worried about TripAdvisor reviews and stuff like that, which I still don't understand why. But, sometimes, like, here's the thing. If a company gets a bad Google review, for example, and they do advertising on Google, then with bad reviews, it means that their ad costs go up. I only learned that a few years ago. So the key is that they want to maintain a really good rating. And of course, if you have somebody they're smoking, they're in the wrong, they know they're in the wrong, and then they get fined, what do you think? Are they going to leave a bad review? Probably. They may not mention the fact that they got in trouble for smoking and breaking the rules, but they might just say that they got bad service or whatever. So I don't know. What do you think? Oh, Angelo's got an opinion. First time, charge them. Second time, send them away. Yeah. I mean, look, if they do it once and they get caught and they do it a second time, what's to stop them from doing it a third, fourth, fifth, 10th time? So I kind of agree with that one. I mean, if you're breaking the rules, you're breaking the rules. So I don't know. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Yeah, so these are my topics for today. So just a short little show today, short little travel chat. But yeah, I'm working on some stuff. I've found some really interesting YouTube videos that were done in the UK that I'm going to try to emulate here in Vancouver. Basically, they used AI, they used ChatGPT to come up with an itinerary for them, and went out and did the day trip plan as chat or as the artificial intelligence plan came up with, and see if it's a good setup or not. And this could be an interesting way to explore different cities. I wanted to do it here in Vancouver first because, like I mentioned earlier, downtown East Side is a pretty dodgy area, with a lot of people on drugs and stuff like that. But that's a very specific area, and I know to stay away from it. The Gastown area, fine. Downtown Vancouver, fine. Robson Street, fine. But I'm kind of curious to see what kind of plan this thing will come up with, and I'll do a whole video. It'll be more of a showy type video than my usual just information. But yeah, I hope you enjoy that. That's coming up. Probably not this weekend, but maybe next weekend if I can get it all done and filmed and stuff. Angela's saying, when I stay in Canada or the US, do I tip housekeeping and staff the same as in Mexico, or do you tip the same amounts? Okay, so housekeeping, yeah. I mean, I personally would tip the same amounts. Well, in North America, Mexico, the Caribbean, I would tip the same amounts. Other countries, it's not expected. Like even in the UK, for example, like if you went to a bar and you got a drink in London, it's only been in the last few years that tipping is becoming common, if you will. I don't know about customary, although I will say that there were some of the pubs that we went to when we were there, which was like the last time we were in England was 2-3 years ago. And you could tap. They had a QR code that you could, or a tap machine, and it literally had a set amount. It's like if you wanted to tip £1 for your drink order, you just tapped it. You could tap again if you wanted to give them £2. So that was kind of interesting. But depending on where I'm going and what is customary for that country is what I would tip. If it's for drinks, then well, look, if it's at a restaurant or a bar and you're ordering food or drinks, whatever, then that's usually 20% for me. But if you just go to the bar to get a drink, I don't know, it's different. Vegas was always $1 a drink. But I haven't been back to Vegas in a long time, and I think everything's just so outrageously expensive there that they probably expect a lot more now. I don't know. Let me know what you think. So if you've enjoyed this video today, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And go ahead and click on that, the bell sign, so that you get notified whenever I go live or I'm going live, that kind of thing. Yeah, Angela's saying, yeah, Vegas has gotten super expensive. Yeah, it's just nuts. Interesting. So Angela's saying he tips a little bit more if it's a nice hotel. Here's the other consideration personally that I take into account is, and it's difficult to always know, but for example, I think it's I always get it confused if it's Oregon or Arizona. I think it's Arizona, where their minimum wage is like $2 an hour for certain staff. Like if you're the concierge or bellhop, that kind of thing, I think they pay like $2 an hour. In which case, yeah, tipping would be well received. Whereas if the person, like here, a lot of places are unionized. So if they're making $25 an hour, then I don't feel like I necessarily need to subsidize their wage as much. So I tend to tip. I think I tip more in Mexico just because I know that their I know that their cost of living is a lot less, but also their wages are a lot less. So, um, but either way, I mean, if you're going outside of where you live and you're putting some money into the economy, whether it's through buying stuff or through tipping, then I think it's all good, and definitely helps out that area. So just be careful though of, especially at certain restaurants or like more so fast food places. What we're finding now, like Starbucks had for a while, they had the tip thing on there. You buy a coffee, and they had the option to tip. Like, I don't drink coffee really more than once or twice a year, but my husband does. And if he's getting a drip coffee, like there's not a whole lot of service going into that order. Um, so, do you tip? Do you not tip? I don't know. Um, but what's interesting is we're finding out some places, like certainly some of the Subways out here, Subway restaurants, they're the sub sandwiches. The owners are keeping that money. So it's franchise, and the staff aren't getting those tips. So even the person goes out of their way to make you some fancy sandwich and does everything exactly how you want it, and you tip them, they're not getting it. So, it's interesting. Yeah, Angela's saying hard to know because the tipping wage thing is changing here, becoming unionized. Interesting. I think to a certain extent, it almost needs to get regulated in as much as if the owners of the restaurant or fast food restaurant, if the owners are keeping those tips or management is keeping those tips, I think they need to disclose that. I think they should. I think they should be obligated to, because it's important as a consumer to know who is getting that money ultimately. So, well, it's hard to say. Interesting. So I'm going to wrap everything up for today. So again, if you haven't hit that like button, go ahead and do so. And there we go. 8 likes. Woohoo! You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So thanks for your comments, Angelo, especially. Always enjoy seeing your comments on here. And yeah, looking forward to another chat next week. Gonna get a video for this weekend, so look forward to that. I'm just saying, have a great day. Yeah, I hope you guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. Is it a long weekend? Oh, it's almost a long weekend. Oh, so what is it? 1, 2, 3. So Canada Day is next week, and I think the 4th of July is falling on a Friday next week. So big week coming up. Wow. It's barbecue season for sure. So have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you again next Wednesday, same time, same place, and yeah, cool. I'm glad you do. All right, have a great time, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.